All right, so this is an introduction video of a series I'm going to make about this. And this video is going to have to give you a little bit of history because this project I started early 2014, which is about the same time we bought this building. At that time I was living in New Hampshire and I had a 24 by 24 garage. And I bought this car from a good friend of mine who was planning on building it as a track stroke daily driver, and he decided he didn't want to do that, so I bought that from him. This is a 1997 BMW M3. It's an E36 four-door, and I bought it with the intention of doing a quick drift car build. So gut it, roll cage, race car stuff, keep the 6-cylinder, probably put a turbo on it. But things escalated because the engine was bad. It had no compression when it was hot. I looked into building that engine, and remarkably expensive to build those BMW motors. So I opted to go down the LS path instead. So this is a 5.7 LS. It's out of a 2001 Firebird WS6. Has a 6-speed T56 transmission behind it. And I bought a basic kit from CX Racing to do the swap. So transmission mount, motor mount plates, drive shaft, fuel system conversion. I have all of that stuff. And through 2014, I did a ton of fabrication work on this thing, and I'm going to put some pictures up all over of gutting it, roll cage installed, pretty heavy duty roll cage, chassis stiffening where they always crack on the rear subframes, seat mounts, all the underside modifications, trunk spare tire delete. It had a bit of a shunt in the rear. Just the back of that side driver leg was crunched a little bit, and there's one little bit of rust on there. But this thing got to almost the point you see it here, and then we did the big move from New Hampshire to Detroit, and this thing has sat ever since with a cover on it, and it had a lot of all the fabrication was more or less unpainted, so there was a bunch of surface rust. But I've shuffled everything around in here, and I wanted to work on a project that I could get finished in a reasonable time frame, and decided this is the project that I want to work on. The goal for this is it's going to be a time attack car, SCCA road racing, and drift car. We're going to go with the NA LS for now. I'll probably put heads and a cam on it and a different intake. The biggest change is it's getting a GTR wide body, so it's going to look like a GTR replica even though it's got an LS driveline in it. So dragged it out of storage, have it in my work bay. I've spent the last week getting all the surface rust off the floors and all of the stuff that was fabricated in there. I've then done a rust conversion treatment, and then I've done an epoxy prime, and today I've just put in some seam sealer, and I wanted to get all of that done before I tackle sanding the cage back to bare metal and etch priming that. Once I get done with this little video intro and then a subsequent walk around, I'm going to pull the motor and trans out so that I can clean up the engine bay and get that to the same condition. Then I can start the final fabrication. Final fabrication stuff that's left is the door bars, some infill panels to close things off, and mostly little bits and pieces. Most of the hard work is done, as I'll show you coming up. And I have most of the parts on the shelf for this except for the wide body. I have to order that, and that's coming from Germany. So the goal right now is to finish the fabrication that needs finishing, then go through a full dry build, bolt everything on that I have, make sure everything's good, make sure I can put in provisions for any brake lines and fuel line mountings and bypass holes for things to go through bulkheads, and get the thing fired up and driving under its own power while I wait for the body kit, the carbon fiber body kit, to be made and shipped from Europe, and hopefully have this thing out for some testing before the end of the year. Life is kind of crazy, so it might roll into next spring, but that's the goal. So with that, let me shut this off and I'll give you a quick walk around. So we'll give you a quick walk around, rundown on this thing. 97 M3, as I said. LS from a WS1. Rest in peace. So the cage is done, except for the door bars. I always do door bars last because getting in and out of the car is a pain in the ass when the door bars are in. As I said, the trunk floor has been, the spare tire is gone. The roll cage is tied into the front and rear subframe mounts, and the rear strut towers have been modified and reinforced. And you can see the etch prime and the seam sealer that I've just done. I did the etch prime and seam sealer now because when I get into sanding the roll cage, I don't want all of that rust powder getting into the seams, which I just spent a long time getting it out of the seams. But here you can see the front subframe mounts are tied in. You can actually see they cut the metal away, cut a pocket so I could weld those onto the base metal. Main diagonal, and just some quick tests on sanding. Then the tunnel has been modified for the T56 transmission. That's actually an Audi S6 adjustable steering column. You can see the cage is pretty nicely tied in. I've got to do a little bit more tie-in, for instance, down this inside seam here. But pretty sturdy cage. I have an anti-intrusion bar to stop the wheels coming in if I hit the wall at 100 miles an hour. Those go up to the strut towers. Those two bars are anti-intrusion and to stiffen things up, stop the motor, transmission coming into the passenger area. And then the cage is tied through the firewall to the front strut towers, which have also been reinforced. And then everything has been stitch welded. And then these two bars, triangulation bars, are removable. You can see the joint there, and there's another joint up in there. So if I want to pull ahead or something with the engine in the car, I can remove those bars. So I have to fabricate closures for here. And I have to fabricate closures for the back seat where the tubes go through, and for the rear deck lid area here. And maybe I'll put this thing up in the air so we can take a look underneath. Oh, one thing I will mention is that I modified the floor here because I'm using a floor-mounted pedal box. This is the floor-mounted pedal box, which will bolt to the floor down there, and then the reservoirs will be up on that crossbar. So let's put this thing up in the air. So I guess we'll go front to back. These are the engine mounts, which now mount directly to the frame rails instead of to the subframe like they do originally in the BMW. Headers come down, T56. This is the transmission mount. And you'll see the floor is basically, other than a final scrubbing, ready for paint. Everything has been seam sealed modified as needed. And here this is a chassis reinforcement where the trailing arms mount, a very common failure point in these cars. And then those are the rear subframe mounts and the flat boot lid, flat trunk floor. The spare wheel is gone, and that's mainly so I can run a much bigger diffuser in the rear. Yeah, pretty straightforward. I mean, most of the fab is done, so I should be able to get to the dry build stage fairly quickly, which I'm looking forward to. You know, bolt everything on, make sure it all fits. So I did some clearancing here for the exhaust. This was hammer clearancing, this was fabricated clearancing. Yeah, M3 GTR, normally aspirated LS, might be on ITBs for now, or it might get turbocharged. Only time will tell, but stay tuned.